You're listening to the Lawyers with Purpose Practice Success Podcast, hosted by Lisa Rozier, featuring attorney Dave Zampano, along with frequent guests. Whether you're a seasoned estate planning attorney, an attorney looking to add estate planning and elder law to your existing list of practice areas, or you're just starting out, this podcast will give you a solid plan for success. Listen now as Dave and his guests share their personal journeys to practice success and the insights they learned along the way.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Practice Success Podcast. I'm Lisa Rozier, joined with my partner in crime, attorney Dave Zampano, and our special guests today are Sharon Hoskins and Rob Hoskins from Hoskins LLP, based out of Westbury, New York, correct?
Correct.
All right.
On the island.
Long Island. Yes. Sharon and Rob,
Island.
welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
You know, I'd love you guys to introduce yourselves and just tell your story. You know, this is the Practice Success Podcast. We like to share with other lawyers, real people, real lawyers just like you, their journey. Everybody has a different journey, and I'd love to have you open with yours.
All right. Rob, you want to start?
Oh, okay. I guess I'll start. So we've been in practice together since 2013. Sharon and I had a private practice, and Sharon was in the firm life, and she wanted to get out, and we decided to join forces and start our own practice together. And Hoskins LLP was started in 2013. We were doing primarily matrimonial law, divorce litigation, prenuptial agreements, all that jazz. And it was good, and we were doing fine. We started out in Manhattan, got tired of the commute, moved out to Long Island where we live, and and then fast forward to the pandemic, we had, like a lot of attorneys, had to practice from our dining room table, which was kind of weird and difficult, but everybody was able to do some of it. But in the meantime, so there's two things. So one of the things that we used to do with divorce clients is, when the divorce was finally over, we would offer people the option to have to do a will, a healthcare proxy, and a living will.
Nice.
It was a little bit of a package kind of deal. And I had done some wills before and a little bit of probate. So we always kind of offered that because it's a big life-changing event. Not many people took us up on it. People said, "Oh, I'll take care of it later," that kind of thing. And we said, "Okay, fine." We didn't push it. Our case was over. So it wasn't that really a big part of our practice. But both of our mothers are in their 80s, and they both own property. And Sharon will go into her story. Her mother actually owned a piece of commercial property that her and her father owned. So, but my mother owns a co-op. And I said, well, we need to think about, my grandparents were both in nursing homes. So I said, okay, we need to think about getting these shares.
How to preserve that equity. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's just, and she only has two sons, myself and my brother. So, being an attorney, I said, okay, I know we need a trust. We got to get a trust. And we also needed a trust for Sharon's mom, for sure, because of the sale of her property.
So that sandwich generation, you found yourself needing it as an attorney. And so you started to reach out and figure out how to do that.
And we found an attorney in New York that happened to be part of LWP. Now, we had no idea what LWP was,
right?
But she took us through the process. It's kind of funny. One of the funny parts is that attorney wanted us to attend a workshop, and we said, no, we don't need a workshop. We know what we want. We know what we need. My biggest problem for my mother's situation was whether or not the co-op would allow the transfer into a trust. So that was, I said, I had to contact, the co-op's attorney to find out, and, everything worked out. But she wanted us to do the workshop, and we just insisted, no, let's get the documents going. And, so it's kind of funny that we did.
Sharon's laughing. Bring us your side of this whole thing.
Well, because I was the one that made the call, right, to speak, and she said, that was my reaction. It's like, I don't need to attend a workshop. I need you to do a trust. I know what I need. I know what I want. I actually already had it drafted up. I just need you to update it,
yeah,
and let my mother come in and sign it and be done. And so she had to do a little convincing to get me to sort of comply with the system and follow the system that she had. And after much cajoling, I did. And while we were in her office talking about what my mother needed, she kind of mentioned, you know what, you might be interested in this practice area, right? Because I talked about how I kind of wanted to get out of divorce law. And she mentioned Lawyers with Purpose. And I was like, well, what is that? I mean, what's the purpose? Like, it sounds like a cult or something, right?
Sounds like a not-for-profit.
So she told me her experience with it. And I said, I'm going to look into it. And I came home, I went on the website, looked at it, started looking at the videos. And I said, this sounds really interesting. Listening to the video of the first day of the Practice with Purpose, and listening to everyone's introductions and stories, and even the reactions of the presenters, and saying, they said, well, I want to double my revenue. And they're like, sure, you're going to do that and then some. And I was like, well, wait a minute, is it really that easy? And it's not so much that it's easy, right? There's definitely work to do. But if I really, after listening to it and talking about treating your firm like a business and following systems to make the business operate is really a foreign concept, right? When it comes to
lawyers,
firms.
right? Yeah.
Lawyers are not business people, really. And so that kind of just completely changed my thinking. But I want to kind of go back a little bit to my story as to why, why I wanted to switch into estate planning. My family, Rob already mentioned that my father had passed. He owned commercial property, and my mother at this time was trying to sell it. I am one of 6 children, right? So, and none of us really think alike at all. Of course,
tell me a family who does, right?
Exactly. So I knew that and even when my father died, he didn't have a will or anything like that, but it wasn't such a dire circumstance because everything went to my mother. Things were held in joint name. And
so you still have your trump card. You still have that. Yeah.
Right. It wasn't the disaster situation that it could have been, but I know that for my mother, when it comes to be her time, if there was nothing in place, it would be a problem. And my mother herself is one of 12 children. And I know when my grandfather passed, even though he did have a will and left property to the 12 children, they did nothing with it. And then some of them passed away and they had multiple children. And so now we're talking about 30 people who would have to agree in order to have something happen with this property. And so just seeing how everything can kind of snowball into a situation where you lose a valuable asset that was in the family, because this family land that's in North Carolina, I don't know what's going to happen to it eventually. Eventually, so at some point it's going to end up.
So really that personal family need and understanding that you didn't want to have the family unit disrupted was really your proactive sign to say, we have to do something. And as a lawyer, you're like, well, I'm a lawyer. I can help figure this out a little bit, but I want to go talk to somebody who does do this more than me. It sounds like was your journey. Now, I want to throw something in there that's been totally overlooked in this whole conversation. We're talking to Sharon Hoskins and Rob Hoskins, and you're not brother and sister. You're husband and wife. And I got to tell you, that's a huge dynamic in law firms today. Not as common that the husband and wife are attorneys, but very common that one of them is an attorney and the other one works in the law firm, right? Talk to our audience a little bit about some of the challenges and some of the benefits maybe, and some of the challenges of working with your spouse.
Well, the funny thing about that too is that yes, we are married, and we were practicing divorce law, right, together for the last 10 years. So that was in some way with insurance, right? Because we know what the other knows and what
to behave because neither one's going to win.
Yeah.
You know, I think, we used to joke that some of our arguments were the opposite, where people fight over the children and that, one wants, and we're like, no, you take them, I want the free time. But as far as working together, for a long time, I resisted working together because I said, if we do that, that'll be the end of the marriage. But it actually has been, I think it's been great. And it's the important part is that we know our roles. We have very specific and defined like strengths and weaknesses. And so we allow each other to play to our strengths and try not to get in each other's lane. And that allows it to work. And of course, as long as he listens to me, he'll.
He's always right.
Do you have any different perspective on that, Rob?
No, actually, that's why it works, because I think that I understand what she can do. I've seen her in action, both in court, out of court. So I know what she can do. I know what I can do. And, so we've kind of developed these lanes, and I stick in it. I know what I'm good at, so I stick with it, which is one of the things that really attracted me to LWP. After Sharon mentioned, we started looking at the PWP and learning about the workshops. I taught at a college for a couple of semesters here, and I taught business law, which covers just general first year law school stuff. And I like the teaching part. I didn't like the grading part, but I like the teaching part.
Yeah.
So the workshops really, interest me. And once we started doing it, I said, this is great. This is easy. I love it.
Yeah. So really, I love the two lessons I'm hearing. One is you focus on your strengths, right?
Yeah.
The second is you're staying in your own lanes. Like, you know what your role is. And I think that's critical because, we're pretty dominant about this at LWP is there are boxes on an organizational chart and names are in each one of them. And it's not about whose name, it's about who's responsible for the KPIs in each one of those boxes. I grew up in a family business. So I'm the youngest of 10 kids.
Wow.
And we grew up in a family business, but I didn't understand that I was an entrepreneur. My mother ran the family business. In 1965, my mother purchased the business from her father, and my mom and dad ran it together. They bought it for 25 years. And in those 25 years, which is my childhood, right? In those 25 years, they increased the business 37-fold. And seeing and experiencing that, we were brought up that you started at the bottom. Your name meant nothing when you walked into the building. And you had to work your way up. And I got to tell you, it really impacted me positively, obviously as an entrepreneur, but also negatively as a family person, because my motto is it's all about family. And what I realized, among the 10 children, 6 of us were in the business and 4 weren't. And the 4 weren't, Sunday dinner became the boardroom. And in retrospect, that wasn't really fair to my 4 siblings who weren't in it. So when I ran the business, I had very, very strict rules. And I encourage you guys, if you don't do this, everything that was done while in the office. There was no office discussion at home. In fact, I would come home at night and I would mentally leave everything at the office, to the point where my wife, she was my CFO. My wife's a CPA. She would be my CFO over the years. And I'd come home, and she always worked from home because of the kids. And as the business grew, she'd want to ask me questions at night. And I said, 9 to 5, 9 to 6, that's when I work. If that's when you want to discuss it, I'm happy to discuss it then. And those boundaries, my kids wanted to come in. I have a daughter that's a lawyer. She wanted to come and work for me. And I said, no, honey, I really don't think that's going to help you. The beautiful part was, as she was growing up, she was exposed to the law firm. She saw the things. I said, you really need to go find your own path. I said, and if someday your path brings you here, that's great. And there was a short period of time where she did work with us, very strict rules on that, because I was not running the law firm at the time. Someone else was, and they said, I really want your daughter. And I said, all right, well, then I'm going to coach my daughter, and you're responsible to take care of the firm. And I'm going to coach her really well. So those boundaries, I think, critically important for the kids, for the family, but also for your own relationships, right? What has been some of your experiences around that? Some of the challenges you've had to overcome?
We don't necessarily turn it off, right?
No.
Sometimes you bring up stuff, and there are times when he may bring up something. I'm like, not now. Like, I can't deal with it now.
Yeah.
And vice versa. But we're kind of on and off throughout because, we don't necessarily keep to a 9 to 5 schedule either, right?
Right.
When we have 3 children and we want to attend, games or an event. 2 of them are baseball players and one is a track runner. And, so we kind of turn stuff off in the middle of the day and then turn it back on a little later as the schedule requires.
So
and
that
then
goes
ideas
to
hit.
Yeah.
Ideas come, Sharon's ideas come first thing in the morning when she wakes up, and she tells me right then. So
she wants to unload them on you. Yeah.
And he doesn't listen.
And I don't listen.
Well, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter.
Well, I get the same
as long
idea
as you get to
later in
say
the
it.
afternoon. So
yeah. And later in the afternoon, it registers with you, right, Rob? And you go, oh, what you said this morning. But
That's
for you,
right.
Sharon, I think verbalizing it, we say a lot is, a thought is just a thought until it's declared. You got to speak it or write it, and then it becomes real. It's not real until it is. So let me ask you this question. You came into this, things are going well. What's your vision of your future? I mean, how has your vision of your future changed, say, in the past year, since you've been exposed to this new way of doing things in this new area of practice?
I see growth. Right now, it's just the 2 of us, and it has been just the 2 of us. We haven't had an assistant or a paralegal or anything, and we already see that we really need to hire a client services coordinator at this time to help with the follow-up and phone calls and interaction with clients. So that's the first step. And that's like, we talked about goal setting and what we need to do. That's in our immediate future. We are very interested in embracing innovation, right, in law, and using the tool with Guider to have younger people doing their will plans and using online services in that way. So that's part of our 3-month plans to get into with that. And we also want to expand into Medicaid planning, even more so. So that we're looking at that so that next year we can roll that out. And right now we're just educating ourselves on that and spending the next couple of months learning all about that so we can be ready to provide that service.
Yeah, go ahead. Rob, anything different for you as you look at your future compared to your past?
No, I mean, we're right on the same page. I see a lot of opportunity because for one thing, this subject matter, this estate planning, generational wealth preservation, asset protection is a big issue on social media in our community, in the Black community especially. It is all over the place, and there's not a lot of providers. And the system, since we've learned this system, we know exactly what we can provide. So we're really looking forward to all of those other areas. Like Sharon mentioned, we're going to provide the Medicaid portion, and just doing the plans in general is a big help. But the Medicaid Guider, reaching out to that audience, assisting families with college students, we're looking forward to all of that.
Yeah, so it's expanding your breadth,
Absolutely.
that you're able to serve more people more efficiently, more effectively. I couldn't agree more. As I think about the practice we're in, and I'm thinking, Sharon, you said, it's just you two. And it was funny. We just did a podcast, the last podcast, we had a law firm success attorney that his whole practice is around helping lawyers succeed. And we were talking about law firm models and how many staff and how many attorneys. And I was saying how the biggest mistake most lawyers make that I've experienced is they always want to go hire another lawyer first. And I say, no. You don't get another lawyer. You got to have 3 to 4 staff before you get your next lawyer. You got to hit certain revenue goals. You guys kind of, husband and wife, you didn't have a choice. You kind of had to start together. So what I would say is for you two, you're really, and don't take this as bad as it's going to sound, you're really not lawyers. You're part-time lawyers, and you're part-time paralegals, and you're part-time client service coordinators, and you're part-time funders, and you're part-time drafters, right? Because these are all boxes on the organizational chart where there's really bodies that do that. But what I love about what you said, Sharon, you said, you want to learn it first. And one of the things I've always learned Everybody says you got to delegate, you got to delegate. Well, that's easily said, very difficult done, especially with lawyers. Lawyers are the top 2% intellectually in the world, or in the country, and they don't easily delegate. But
Sure.
what I would share is, here's where I've always gotten people to be confident to delegate to, like you said, to that client service coordinator, and hopefully a paraprofessional here at some point soon. And this is what it is. It's, you have to learn it and understand it exceptionally well. You then have to deliver it successfully.
Right.
So you have to do it successfully. Once you do it successfully, then you've got to build a mechanism to train someone else to do it successfully. And then the most important part 4, you have to have reporting and tracking that measures that success. And that's how a true delegation works, by understanding it yourself, doing it successfully, and then being able to have a structure that trains your staff how to do it. Again, that's where LWP helps you with a lot of that stuff, but also to have the reports and tools, again, that we have, so you can see that your staff is doing it and getting the same result you did. So that being said, you're a unique breed. You're unique in that you're a husband and wife team. You're unique in that you're transitioning from family law. As we wrap up the podcast today, there's any number of lawyers that could be listening to this, people that are not currently in estate planning. They might be in family law like you, or they might be in litigation. What piece of advice would you want to share with anyone sitting on the edge or precipice of making a change in their practice into some new area, whether it's estate planning or something else? What would be your advice? And I'll start with you, Sharon, then go to you, Ron.
I would say it was a little daunting to even think about changing areas after practicing for over 20 years. And it's that one of the good things that came out of the pandemic is just to say, you know what, just do it. Right. And what really speaks to me about this area in particular is, by nature, I'm an educator, I'm a helper, and I'm a doer. So I love and I started as a teacher before I went to law school. And so I love the education piece. And I feel like that I'm doing something for others. So that's where the helping comes in. So not only am educating myself, but I get to educate others. I
feel like you're making a contribution.
Right. And so fine. So I say all of that to say, if it's something that speaks to you and really allows you to follow your passion and gives you some fulfillment, then why stop, right? Why prevent yourself from moving forward into that other area or into that other thing that you wanted to do? Go out there, find a group or whatever it is that will help you learn what you need to learn and kind of give you that support to take the steps along the way, because that will, allow you to succeed in what you want to do.
That legal community to support you. Yeah, love it. And don't be afraid. How about you, Ram?
Yeah, I would say the same thing, with regard to, what really got me, solidified it for me was the other attorneys, listening to other attorneys like Jeff Palomo and listening to, the other folks talk about it, the attorney, Elizabeth Grant, who we went to here, and talking to them about the system and learning about the system ourselves. At first it may seem like it's too good to be true, because it's basically a practice in a box. The only thing I'm upset about is I didn't know about this 10 years earlier. Because I would have, it would have been, and like Sharon said, the not only is it a practice that you can do and all the support is there, but it's based on a foundation. I mean, I read your law review article, so that's a foundation for this whole process, and all your skepticism should go away, because the support is there, the infrastructure is there, and you're doing what essentially you wanted to do when you came out of law school, which is help people and help families. And just by the few cases that the few matters that we've had so far, we've helped people tremendously. I mean,
and you get lots of brownies and cookies and baked goods and.
Well, it's funny because, the funny part about it is some people don't know what they've avoided once we've done this for them. Okay. They know that they need it. They know that they wanted it, but did they?
They didn't understand the relevance.
But then if they, but what we saved them from, they don't understand how devastating it would have been.
Yeah. You know, I can't believe you said that, Rob. I always say my greatest joy is knowing that they'll never know what we saved them from.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
And that helps us sleep at night. They'll never
Yeah.
know what we saved them from. So
Yeah.
that's kind of cool. Well, I'll give you guys closing thoughts. I would love you to just share how someone can get a hold of you directly if they ever wanted to follow up with you about your own experience or other things that are relevant. How might they get a hold of you, and any closing thoughts?
Go, Rob.
Oh, yeah. Well, you can always email us. Well, our website is www.hoskinsllp.com. It's being redone right now, but it's still up there. You can contact us through there. My email is rob@hoskinsllp.com. And Sharon is Sharon@hoskinsllp.com. So drop us an email. Our phone number is 516-907-2300. And we're in Westbury, Long Island. Come see us, 400
Yep.
Post Avenue.
There you go.
We're also
Right
on Facebook and LinkedIn.
Facebook, LinkedIn, all that stuff. Yeah, we got all that. TikTok coming
Any
soon.
closing words of wisdom from you, Sharon?
Closing words, just make sure you have a plan, right?
Yeah.
And if you do have one, tell your friends, make sure they have one, and seek out help to make sure that everyone's all covered and all set.
Well, thank you so much. It's always great to hear. Very rare a husband and wife team, but very relevant. I think it's very relevant to other lawyers listening. So I thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to share here at the Practice Success Podcast. Lisa?
Yeah, no, great conversation. Again, loving it, Sharon and Rob. I'm so glad that we were able to get you on the podcast today, and really encourage our listeners to reach out to Sharon and Rob, pick their brain. And then if you want to listen to additional episodes, all you have to do is go to lawyerswithpurpose.com and click on the Practice Success Podcast button. Sharon, Rob, Dave, thank you again for joining me. Great conversation, and you all have a wonderful day.
All right.
Have a great day.
Thanks, guys. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Practice Success Podcast. Visit www.lawyerswithpurpose.com/podcast to listen to other episodes and to subscribe. We'll see you next time.